In the rundown of this morning's program, I'll just indicate that we will open the phone lines at 9:35, and we will welcome your calls. At 10:10, we will have a discussion with the Senior Superintendent of Police, Dennis Brooks, concerning matters having to do with the JCF, its ongoing crime management strategy, and indeed some of the things that are topical in terms of concerns being ventilated regarding the increases in police fatal shootings. And then at 11:10, we'll be joined by our very own Dr. Diana Thorburn. She is the Director of Research at CAPRI, Caribbean Policy Research Institute. That's a think tank situated here on the Mona campus. And we'll be joining her to speak or hear from her on a recent bit of research that was conducted as it relates to the role of women in organized violence. And then at 10:30, we'll open the phone lines, and that's essentially the rundown of the program. So at 11:10, we'll have Dr. Thorburn, phone lines at 11:30. At 10:10, we'll have SSP Brooks of the JCF. At 10:30, we'll run to the phone lines. And at 9:35, as I said earlier, we'll facilitate your calls. But just before I get into my opening commentary this morning, we have our feature, What's the Cost? In terms of What's the Cost, it's our weekly Thursday morning feature where we give you listeners a rundown as to the price of fuel, and we give a sense as to what's happening on the exchange rate market. So we just bring up our theme. All right, so in What's the Cost, motorists and other sector interests can be advised that gas prices are down $1.77 this morning. Diesel is down $1.47. Motorists should see a decrease at the pumps in the price of gasoline effective Thursday, February 27, according to the latest ex-refinery costs from Petrojam, with both grades of gasoline down $1.77. 90 octane will be sold for $160.42 per liter, while 87 octane will be sold for $152.40 per liter. Automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $1.63.61 per liter, and that's following a decrease of $1.47. And ultra-low sulfur diesel will be sold for $172.59 per liter, which is down by $1.44. Kerosene, listeners, is down $2.62 and will be sold for $145.09 per liter, while propane, liquid petroleum, will be sold for $69.68 per liter, which is down by $1.51. To round it out, butane liquid petroleum will be sold for $77.71 per liter, and that is down by $1.56. Marketing companies, of course, and retailers across the island will add their respective markup to these prices. And on the foreign exchange side, the Jamaican dollar rather, is trading at $157.96 to $1. The US dollar, listeners, on Wednesday, February 26, ended trading at $157.96, up 12 cents, according to the Bank of Jamaica's daily exchange trading summary. Meanwhile, the Canadian dollar ended the day's trading at 110 Jamaican dollars and 55 cents, down from $111.23, while the British pound sterling ended at $200.08, down from $201.91. So that's a look at what's the cost and what's happening on the FX market. The phone lines. This day is Thursday, February 27. We are at a juncture where, as we learned last week from the Planning Institute of Jamaica, numbers have come in for the December quarter. I believe the central bank gave its own numbers and its own comments on the state of the Jamaican economy yesterday. Now, with the numbers being in, there is a considerable degree of conversation publicly around the question of a recession. For all intents and purposes, listeners, a recession is a significant downturn in economic activity. So when all is said and done, that's essentially what a recession turns on. A recession is a significant downturn in economic activity. To go even further, I wish to use a definition from investopedia.com. It says here, a recession is a significant, widespread, and prolonged downturn in economic activity. A common rule of thumb is that 2 consecutive quarters of negative gross domestic product indicate a recession. However, more complex formulas are also used to determine recessions. And I went for this definition, listeners, because it is particularly instructive and nuanced. A superficial consideration of economic output alone, meaning the 2 consecutive quarters of decline, yes, while it is an important metric and measure as to the condition of a national economy, it is an insufficient bit of metric as to whether an economy is in recession. Indeed, it is within this context and for this very reason by organizations such as the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the World Bank, and of course other pundits and organizations that provide analyses in terms of global markets adopt a much wider suite of measures in their consideration as to whether an economy is in recession. So just to be clear, while Jamaica, having regard to the passage recently of Hurricane Beryl in July of 2024, a few months later, we were affected by the passage of Tropical Storm Raphael. In the latter part of calendar year 2024, we will recall that we had considerably higher than normal volumes of rainfall. Yes? So those things combined and resulted in the outturn that we have registered here in Jamaica insofar as a contraction in economic output for the September quarter by 3.5%, and a further contraction in economic output for the December 2024 quarter, a contraction that is estimated by PIOJ in the order of 1.8%. But make no mistake, if you follow this discussion closely, it is as though, and it is quite unbelievable, that there are our Jamaican brothers and sisters among us who seem to be reveling in the prospect of, in the notion of the Jamaican economy being in a recession. Make no mistake, while the textbook definition, the anachronistic and antiquated textbook definition of a recession has been 2 consecutive quarters of economic growth, we know that that is an insufficient measure as to what is happening in the Jamaican economy, and in any economy for that matter, because a recession is a significant downturn in economic activity. And it takes into account, for example, how prolonged the downturn is and how pervasive the downturn is in terms of key sectors in the national economy. But to come back to the point, we have to be mindful, listeners, as to the context within which this conversation is being had and ensuing. Jamaica is on the heels of its next set of general elections. Quite frankly, the upcoming general elections may be considered the most consequential, or certainly one of the most consequential in the history of Jamaica, certainly in Jamaica's recent history. So a lot is riding on it. Our politics is competitive like that of many other democratic societies such as ours. You have an incumbent government, and you also have, yes, an opposition party. The main opposition here in Jamaica is the PNP. And in the cut and thrust of our Westminster-style politics, it is a situation in which a set of people who are in the job, i.e., in this case, the Jamaica Labour Party, you have another set of people seeking to replace them, i.e. the opposition PNP. So we respect that, we understand that, and we are mindful that the cut and thrust of the politics will ensue. What we must reject, however, and what we must never countenance as a people, is an almost celebration of the things that are negative for Jamaica and bad for Jamaica, because it appears to be things that some persons are seeking to place their political store and their political fortunes on. In short, it cannot be and should not be that good news for Jamaica is invariably bad news for those people who are seeking to be elected to office. It should not be and cannot be that good news for Jamaica is bad news for those persons who have their snouts trained on the trough and who have serious ambitions of assuming elected office in this country. That should not be the basis on which you seek office. The basis on which an opposition party should seek office is its suite of policies, ideas, and its outline of alternatives to the incumbent government. Yes, you should be presenting your plans and programs, making an impression on the electorate, resonating with the electorate via those plans and programs so that you are considered for and elected to office. It should not be a situation where things that are good for Jamaica are bad news for you because of your political calculus, and invariably, the things that are bad for Jamaica are the things that you would want to embrace and embellish, as we're seeing now in this recession conversation. If you think about it fundamentally, listeners, there is no point to be scored from the mention of Jamaica being in a recession. Because quite frankly, a recession, for all intents and purposes, is a state of activity in a national economy which essentially is characterized by a host of maladies and a host of negatives. For example, when an economy is in a recession, you are likely to have job losses, significant job losses. What that means is that more of the people in that country will go on the heap of the unemployed. They would be displaced in terms of the income they earn, and they will not be in a position, as they would have been previously, to provide for themselves and, I dare say, their families. We would have seen it in the past. We would have seen it in the United States, for example, in 2008 with the global recession. Had the housing sector crisis in the United States, people lost their jobs, people lost their homes, and people had a rough time. That's what a recession looks like, invariably. In Jamaica, you are not having job losses. In fact, here in Jamaica, we're having the diametric opposite of job losses. Persons are accessing jobs. Business people in Jamaica are struggling to recruit because the vacancies that they have in their businesses are not being filled because Jamaica is virtually at full employment. So businesses are struggling to find workers in many instances, in particular skilled workers and workers in certain specialized, highly specialized areas. So irrespective of which political party one may support, there are some things that are incontrovertible. Unemployment rate in Jamaica at present stands at 3.5%. More Jamaicans are employed at this time than at any time previously in Jamaica's recorded history. These are just some simple facts. Now, there are those who do not necessarily welcome these developments who will posit, understandably so, because they have their, partisan considerations that overwhelm them. They will posit, essentially, that jobs that many people have in the economy are menial jobs. They are not high-paying jobs. And that observation is true. But the fact that a person's job is wiping windows at the stoplight or selling ripe banana at the stoplight, as I've heard one commentator elsewhere in Radioland opine, that a person may work in a restaurant or at a car wash, that is the person's job. It is the means by which that individual provides for him or herself and their dependents. Yes? So we should not diminish what people do In fact, what we should do in this country is precisely what is happening now, which is encourage more people to avail themselves of education and training opportunities, such as the training opportunities being provided at the Heart NSTA Trust. That is what will allow persons to attain the requisite skills and certification that will enable them to maneuver at higher levels in the job market. When you are a specialized electrical technician, when you are a specialized mechanic and you have your certification, you are able to command a higher income than if you are merely a person at a car wash washing people's motor vehicles. Let us encourage our brothers and sisters to avail themselves of the expanded suite of offerings at the Heart NSDA Trust and the fact that there is no cost up to level 4 to pursue programs at Heart. In fact, a stipend is being provided, nutrition support is being provided to access Heart skills training programs. And that is how people maneuver, listeners, out of what we will consider and may consider as low-skilled, low-wage jobs to higher skilled, higher paying jobs. But make no mistake, it is a travesty for us to, in a country such as this, where no one has control over the passage of adverse weather systems such as a hurricane. Yes? For people to be chomping at the bits and almost playing up and celebrating, sending wrong signals to our global partners in the international market space about Jamaica being in recession. To what end? Because your calculation is that making the point that Jamaica is in recession somehow improves and enhances a platform of the political party with which you associate. That is the basis on which you would want to come to state power. We don't have to leave it there. We can look to other developments in the country. My opening commentary yesterday morning touched and concerned this now controversial issue of police fatal shootings. And it is very clear, some of the persons who are taking issue with police men and women acting lawfully and having confrontations with criminals, which sees the police winning, to the extent that there are persons taking issue with the state and numbers of police fatal shootings at present, meaning criminals are being taken out because they are electing to meet their maker rather than meet the judge. And for persons to be raising issue with that, it says a lot, because they know the impact that the actions of the police at present is having on the murder outturn in the country. Murders are going down, and I shudder to think that that is an uncomfortable state of affairs for some people because of the political considerations. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said something very profound and instructive. Ralph Waldo Emerson is quoted to have once said, "Your actions speak so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." I'm going to repeat it. Your actions speak so loudly that I cannot hear what you say. Because every person will call into this program, every person will indicate that they want murders to be down, they want the police to be safe from marauding gunmen, they do not want hurricanes to come and mash up Jamaica, they do not want Jamaica to be in recession. So those are their words. But their words, we do not place a premium on their words. We place a premium on their actions. Their actions speak so loudly that we cannot hear what they say. We run to the break. We come back after the break with your calls on 876-212-9824 or 876-462-0919. Of course, joining your mid-morning fix here on Talk Radio. Straight up, we have some calls on the line, and without further ado, listeners, we are running to field those calls. Hello, good morning, caller. Hello, good morning. I'm not
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, caller. Yes, you're coming through now, my brother.
Hello.
Yes, I'm hearing you now, caller. Yes, hello.
Hello, good morning, Senator Marlon.
Yeah, morning, caller. I'm hearing you now.
Yes, this is Carl, Southeast Clarendon, Colonel Charles, Luna.
Yes, sir.
I'm happy to have a discussion with you this morning.
All right, sure. Go ahead, my brother. What's on your mind?
Yes, Mr. Morgan, I heard you have two press conferences about the corrupted KSAC institution, 21 corrupted people from the KSAC. And I noticed that it just dropped because Golding come out and see to say he can just brush it away like that. Man wish walk around Jamaica for 4 years or almost 5 years and talk about integrity. And one of the things that Golding did talk about, that if anybody have a little crop of corruption amongst them would have to step aside. Well, the biggest corruption happening in a KSAC in less than 1 year, 11 months. Up till now, I heard Golding have nothing to say about it all now.
Well, you see, leadership in terms of taking action and holding people to account is as leadership does. There are discerning people across Jamaica, Mr. Carl. Persons like yourself, you are domiciled in Southeast Clarendon. Others across the length and breadth of Jamaica will look on, and in keeping with the quote I made this morning, they will recognize that the actions of some people speak so loudly that they cannot hear what they say. Because one of the things the people of Jamaica have grown frustrated with is the politics of talk and not actual action.
Action. And Senator, the next question I want to ask you. A man who did have 2 British visas and a citizen of the United Kingdom, every time you did ask him if he is a citizen of England, him back out the Jamaican passport and show you. How can you trust that man? Or when you talk about integrity, how can you trust a person like that? And if the Gleaner company never paid him up on Sunday evening and ask him, he would not declare that he is a British citizen.
Well, you're absolutely correct, caller. We will recall that there was considerable obfuscation, we think deliberately so, on the part of the opposition leader on the question of his nationality. In one video, the opposition leader is known to have said, I had a British passport as a child. Yes? As a child, yes. I had a British passport. Essentially, without going further and without saying more, it would give people the impression that he was referring to and his British passport holding was a thing of yesteryears and not of recent vintage. And I find it curious up to this day, the basis on which the opposition leader traveled to the UK and obtained a visa to travel to the UK in circumstances where he was the holder of a British passport. Because when you make a visa application, Sir Carl, I am sure that you have to respond to certain questions. And if you respond to them, or if you are to respond to those questions by indicating that you are a British national, albeit you're a dual national, because you're the holder of a British passport, I do not see how your responses in filling out that British application form would be compatible with the fact that you are the holder of a British passport, which was valid at the time and that would have been known to you as well. How the responses you would have provided on that passport form would have been compatible with your status as a dual citizen, essentially. I find that very, very curious. I don't know that other holders of British passport, for example, in this case, Matthew Samoud of the JLP or Julian Robinson of the PNP, if those people, when they commute or travel to the UK, that they land in the UK on a British, well, on a Jamaica, on a visa, on a British visa. I don't know that that is what obtains in those cases.
Senator, I want to ask you one more question to you.
Yeah, one more because we're speaking to run to another call.
Right,
yeah,
other person has to take a space. Do you feel to say a person who could not declare that he is a citizen of England, have any rights now to be held holding up, whether we go Republic or we stay with or we come Caribbean Court of Justice or we stay with the British? Well, my personal decision, known to man, whether my Prime Minister, which is Andrew, couldn't go nowhere this or no, as a statesman, neither the Prime Minister and the Portia Simpson could have active to do anything, couldn't go behind no closed door for me now to tell me, say, me must leave the Privy Council without a referendum. Me, Carl Palmer, must have a say into that.
All right. Well, hear you loud and clear, Mr. Carl. Say good morning to the good people of Clarendon Southwestern. We have to run and take another call. Thank you for your views this morning, sir. We now field another call. All right. So we seem to have lost that call. Carl was touching on something quite important just now, as listeners will appreciate. After many years of talk, and certainly after a report of a joint select committee that dates as far back as 1995, Jamaica is now embarked on another wave of constitutional reform. And many of us, myself included, were hopeful that this particular wave, this current wave, yes, will bear some fruit based on the signals that are being sent by the opposition PNP, certainly the opposition leader Mark Golding. The support of the parliamentary opposition is not likely to ensue in this case. We trust, however, that good sense will prevail. We trust that other lobbyists and advocates will appeal for good sense to prevail, such that we may have an about turn in terms of the position telegraphed some weeks and months ago by the opposition leader on this matter of constitutional reform and the basis on which it is being pursued, i.e., listeners, a phased approach. All right, we run to the phone lines yet again. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Marlon.
Hi, good morning, Chief. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead with your observations or perspectives, my brother. Yes.
African.
Yeah, man, Africa this morning. Go ahead, Africa. Share with us first and foremost what you are doing in commemoration or in marking Jamaica Day tomorrow.
Well, I like to see some activity. I can't afford it.
I see. Do you appreciate that there are some activities going on across the country tomorrow in marking Jamaica Day?
I don't know. That's what I ask you if you could
Let me take the opportunity, because this is something I seek to do, my brother, which is to just impart some knowledge and provide some perspectives and information. Jamaica Day, I think it really came to the fore some years ago, where the Governor General, I believe it is, this incumbent Governor General, I think it was, who essentially saw it fit for us to earmark a day where, at least in schools, we seek to coalesce around our identity as Jamaican folk and our cultural expressions. And so across schools tomorrow, our youngsters will don Jamaica colors, and they will engage in a suite of activities, several activities commemorating Jamaican identity, our cultural expression, our food, for example, because Jamaican gastronomy is right up there and better than many around the world, and so on. So that's essentially what Jamaica Day is aimed at doing. It is aimed at building that national consciousness. It is aimed at propping up a sense of national pride in our identity as Jamaicans. And I think it's a good thing, and the youngsters themselves look forward to it. And you may see them as you go about your business tomorrow, Africa. You will see the young girls, the little girls, you will see the little boys in their fancy dandan, and they look forward to having a good time at school tomorrow.
The school in my community in Grand Spain, I'm going to see them that are ready to.
Yes, man. I hope the folks at Stella Maris will be donning their thing. And what's the primary school near Grand Spain again?
New Day.
New Day Primary. Very well. I trust you'll be seeing them in their kit as well. As it should be, Africa, because I'll tell you this, I spoke about development toward Jamaica Day. Our youngsters engage in speech, drama, several things that exhibit and showcase the best that Jamaica has to offer and what the Jamaican identity has as its core or represents as its core. And it's a good thing, I think. Thanks to Africa Dear for those perspectives. He is essentially a patriotic. I listen to Africa's discourse. He is one of those persons who takes umbrage to some of what is happening in our country, a lot of what is happening in our country in terms of he is fairly Afrocentric, he is fairly conscious, and he's one of those persons who want us to remain or be no nonsense in embracing our African identity and extolling the things that are good for Jamaica. I gather we have another call in line. Hello, good morning, caller.
Morning, Marlon.
Morning, Sir Marsh. Greetings.
Yes. If the JLP know what I know, then ask you to stop talk for them.
Oh.
Because I tell you something, you know, I help them to lose it.
Yeah, man, but that wouldn't be any concern of yours. That would be good news for you, would it not?
No.
I see. So that would be bad news for you?
No, reason for this. People must have the freedom and people must talk. People have a right to talk all kind of garbage. But let me tell you something. When political parties talk about unemployment, they must be careful. Like I tell you something.
Sure.
This unemployment thing where political parties have an go on and a boast with, it make people get here to know, you know.
Oh.
Because when a man, yesterday downtown, I was downtown yesterday, and a lady see me pass, and the lady say, "They come buy something from me, you know." I say, "I don't really want no." People understand, the word is not patronize, Marlon. You got a case,
the word is patronize. I deliberately said what rural folk would say. Typical you two run boat with my virgin them with chicken back and dumpling, mackerel and rice. Irrespective of how much money I may come to have in this life, I love my article, authentic things. Not nice to me like vanilla
When the
Lasco.
lady take up, I said to her, I said, "Give me that one there." She said, "Which one?" I'm sure the one. She buy orange Kirky. You know.
Yeah.
The lady said, when me live a green place. But me understand. Me understand. And me catch it right. That's what because the year when me did. I try to keep me cool, man, but I develop my political argument.
That's what I mean. All right,
But
cool, because we must always exercise good judgment at all times.
Yes,
so
man. Yeah, man.
That's a sensible thing, G.
What we are talking about, when who do the serve lady, they know? Because the lady said she want me buy the curfew for broke her ducks, and I do so. And many people go around and I do them. Enough of the job them. Where's the people that do, like wiping windscreen and all them things there? I think they must stop those things.
All right,
those things that hurtful to people.
All right, let me ask you this,
you can't feed no family after.
I agreed that wiping the windshield, doing other menial jobs, sees people struggling to make headway in a socio-economic sense. You're agreed on that, right? What is the antidote to low-paying jobs, such as what we described a while ago? What is the fix to that? Was that my commentary in the public space is doing the Jamaica Labour Party a disservice and going to cause them to lose. But here you are concurring. All right then, full argument. All right, cool. I can't fault your assessment and your view.
Would you disagree with me that right now, when the PNP come to power, after the JLP take over, they realize that crime get out of and worse than how the PNP did have it?
So just to be clear, Marsh, of course, and I know I don't agree with that. I don't share your view, and I'll tell you why.
No, I expect you to agree. But now under the JLP, I get worse under the JLP, and the JLP have multiple state of emergency. The country is the most state of emergency in the world.
Yeah.
And it reached to where it reached now, the JLP patting themselves and them back. After they lower the crime rate, where they carry up to the lower it down to where they did come and see and patting their back to the.
I want to share something with you, Marsh.
No, you're not. All right, nobody answer.
No, remember, I said no, but you asked me a question, my brother, and then I'm affording you a response now, right? Just to share something with you. Jamaica has had the scourge of criminality, particularly murders in this country. Zin, when we had the 2010 incursion and the imposition of a state of emergency then, which saw the police, it brought law enforcement into the ascendancy and by extension, the criminals on the retreat. We saw a considerable reduction in the murder outturn for 2010 and 2011. You will appreciate, Marsh, that what Peter Bunting and the Simpson Miller administration of 2012 inherited was a momentum in terms of a downward trend. They had handed over to them reductions in crime. They handed over to the incoming government in 2016 the opposite, an increase in crime. Make no mistake though, I've had years of relatively high rates of murder, but a number of things have had to happen, Marsh, and work in tandem together to include such things as recruitment. Do you understand, Marsh, that there are the police force, the JCF is now at establishment?
I'm hearing.
The JCF Marsh, men and women are being recruited, which is something that eluded us in Jamaica for many years. We are now virtually at establishment in the JCF, meaning the number of boots that the police commissioner needs to have at his disposal, he pretty much have them at his disposal now. The investigative capabilities of the JCF has improved. The forensics lab is now better in terms of being outfitted, and it is helping in the overall effort. We have vessels that are patrolling Jamaica's borders at present, March, which we didn't have before. Ships that Andrew Holness bought with our tax dollars, Marsh money and Marlon's money, yes, to patrol our borders, because Jamaica has very porous borders. We are surrounded by water, and man can traffic in guns, as we have had in the past with drugs for gun and gun coming from Haiti, for example, right? All of those things help to bring about what we are, the results we're seeing today, which is considerable reductions in murders. Some among us may not like it. That's why. Sure, so let us look at the statistics.
And I'll give you some figure. I have to really spend the whole time. Not spend the whole time with you. But some are will, and they go around.
Well, no further callers coming as yet. You have some time where you can finish it. No, man, you go ahead. I'm handing over to you now to go on to another observation or respond to what I've placed on the table. I've placed on the table some of the things, Marsh, that have helped to occasion the reductions in crime. You were impugning the numbers just now. I am putting it to you that in 2023, murders went down 8%. In 2024, murders went down 19%. In 2025, up to 18th February, murders went down by 24% so far compared to the corresponding period in 2024.
All right, it's good to have the numbers like that. So the people out there, we on the ground out there, we're nervous going on the street, nervous going about our business, you know.
Good point.
We worried
Excellent
about
point.
that, because when you alleged criminal and you target an alleged criminal and you go and you recite, you kill him and come recite the same recitation over and over and over. Because every time, everybody know the recitation, you know. Call out to the men, one of the men drew his gun, the police take evasive action and return fire, kill him. Him they come investigating. And that is it. And then you hear how much crime him did commit and all of them something there. We don't get to prove nothing in a courthouse. Right? Meanwhile, the criminal must be on the road.
The real criminal no really walk up on the road, really, because a lot of them have been taken out, which is what is resulting in and informing the reductions we're seeing before our eyes today. So, in other words, Marsh, I am putting it to you that if the police, in the lawful exercise of their duties, come across persons who are seeking to threaten their lives or the lives of other members of the public, they must respond in the appropriate ways and in the ways they were trained. We don't encourage or promote unlawful policing. We don't promote police killings in terms of extrajudicial killings. It's justifiable police killings we deal with. And the men have two options, Marsh. They have two options.
I want to say this to you, and I want the police to hear me good, another Jamaica. Listen me good. There are some men around us, women too, around us, we should never be in our society, and we must get rid of them by any legal means. I am a supporter of the police. It's my first line of defense. I have to go run to them if anything. But let me tell you something, Marlon. Many of them are criminal in a uniform.
Any such unprofessional conduct is to be denounced and have the law take its course in terms of
Well,
holding
well,
errant
then-
and rogue officers to account.
Don't Windward
But
Road.
we're out of
Don't
time, though.
Windward
I
Road.
remember the Windward Road incident, and that is the chips will fall where they may.
Marlon, quickly.
Make it 10 seconds or 15 seconds. Run. Go
When
ahead.
my friend find me in,
The media should perhaps investigate it in terms of what is good is that in all instances the chips should fall where they may, which is why Horace Chang is on page 4 of the Observer this morning, making the point. But he's making the point that the police is going after criminals, whether them wear green shirts or orange shirts.
Me not disagree with that, but be careful you take innocent life.
All right, take it easy, Marsh. We have to run to the NPR News at 10. Listeners, we'll be back at 10:10. Stay with us.